Here are 5 things that you can do before harvesting your plants in order to try to achieve maximum quality. Now here I have 5 plants on day 49 of flowering in a half of a 4x8 grow tent. We're not ready for harvest yet, but we're coming up to it pretty quickly here. These are all different genetics in here. They all have different harvest windows, which I'll go over these plants as we go along in this video. But one thing I want to mention right off the bat is the environment, which has been pretty dialed in here in the flowering stage. You can see on the controller here, roughly it's been about 1.2 to 1.4 kPa, that's VPD. And for temperature, I've actually lowered it down to about 78 degrees Fahrenheit is what I have it set to. Now the door is open right now, so things are kind of all thrown off at this point. What you see on here, it doesn't actually match what it's been at. Pretty close to it though. But that brings me to tip number 1, which is to lower the temp prior to harvesting. Now this is a technique that a lot of people will use in order to try to preserve those volatile compounds. Some people might remember me talking about this in a recent past video where I went from running 82 degrees Fahrenheit to 82 degrees Fahrenheit. Well, now I've dropped it even more. I'm now at 78 degrees Fahrenheit. And with about 2 to 3 weeks left for many of these plants, that's where I want it to be for the rest of the grow. So lowering those temperatures is going to help conserve those terpenes, and also lowering those temperatures will help bring out some of those colors. I know a lot of folks during lights off, old school technique is to lower those temps. Usually in the 60 degrees Fahrenheit range, you can get some colors to come out, some purple pigments, the anthocyanins. Those will come out in the 60s. Some people go down in the 50s degrees Fahrenheit, and that helps bring it out even more. Now, if you go too low, like low 50s, even in the 40s, you could stunt plant growth. So going that low isn't generally recommended, but around 60 degree Fahrenheit, particularly for lights off, can definitely help bring out some of those colors. All right, let's get into some of the plants here. And the first one I want to go over is the No Joke by Chad Westport, which is this one right here. Now, I actually woke up, opened up my tent, the lights were on, and one of the buds was flopping over. This main branch right here was so heavy, it actually flopped over. So I had to add some stakes in here for support, but I'm liking what I'm seeing as far as the stacking on here. The trichome production is very good. It's actually starting to come up onto the leaves a little bit. And also the density looks really good. Over here, we've got Lemon Mandarin. This is by Fast Buds. It is a photoperiod plant. A lot of people know Fast Buds for auto flowers, but they do have photos as well. This is one of them. This one's looking pretty good. I'm seeing a little bit of senescence happening here, which is fine towards the end of flowering. Very good bud structure on there, and I'm really liking what I'm seeing so far. Now with the floppage, with these plants kind of flopping over, one of the things that is often done in order to help prevent that air circulation. Now I do have some air circulation going on here. We've got the AC Infinity fans. They've got 2 of them there, and actually have 2 on the other side of the tent. So trying to get some good air circulation so there's some nice swaying happening. That usually helps strengthen the branches, but that's not the only thing that's going to determine whether or not the plant flops over. Some genetics, they're going to flop no matter what. And I'm not sure, this is my first time growing the No Joke. I'm not sure if this one's prone to flopping over, if it was an issue with air circulation or maybe some sort of nutrition. Calcium, for example, helps increase those strong cell walls. Silica can help, things like that. Not entirely sure what was the cause of it, but it happens. So adding stakes for support is definitely helpful. This brings me to tip number 2. It relates to what we were just talking about with the air circulation. Have good air circulation, air movement, and you're reducing that humidity a little bit. Because what will happen, unfortunately, is bud rot can occur if you have stagnant air in the environment and high humidity. So generally speaking, a lot of folks say aim for under 60% relative humidity in flowering. And that's what I'm aiming for here in order to ensure that these plants don't get bud rot. It's not a good feeling at all when you look inside the buds and there is browning, there is white mold that's occurring. It's called Botrytis cinerea. It is very common in the flowering stage if there's that lack of air movement and high humidity. So general range for humidity is between 50 and 60% in flowering. Some people go even lower than that. They'll go between 40 and 50%. Warp back 10 years ago, and the general knowledge was to decrease the humidity as much as possible towards late flowering. So some people were at like 30% relative humidity late in flowering, and that's what I used to aim for. Being here in a desert region, it's very dry. It's very easy to get that low of a relative humidity. And I, personal opinion, felt like quality would be lacking a little bit if I went that low in humidity. So since then, since I've learned some things over the years, I've been aiming just for that VPD range, getting VPD between 1.2 to 1.4 kPa, making sure the air movement in there. and then I'm usually good to go. In order to help achieve that optimal environment, gotta give a shout out to AC Infinity, huge supporter of this channel. They're sponsoring this video. They hook up my videos with a discount code. You can use code MrGrowIt15. That works on both Amazon as well as the website. So feel free to use that code to save a few dollars off at checkout. Here we have Bruce Banner number 3. This is the smallest plant of the bunch. Looking very, very good. The harvest window for this is around 10 weeks. So we got a little ways to go here. Liking what I'm seeing so far. Very dense bud structure, although the plant is the shortest plant of the bunch. It is receiving the least amount of light compared to the other plants here, and that's just because it being further away from the light. But this brings up the next tip I want to go over in this video. It's an optional thing, but a lot of people do still practice this. Some people don't practice it, which is lower the light intensity a few weeks prior to harvest. Now, this is simply just dimming down your light as you get closer and closer to harvest. It is said to reduce stress, help the plant kind of slow down a little bit, maintain that bud density. Make sure that if you're too high of heat, for example, if the light's too high, if you have too high of heat, you could potentially get foxtailing. I have that on a different plant right now in a different grow space, which definitely doesn't make the plant look good as far as like bag appeal, for example. Now, another thing people do in regards to lighting is they will change the spectrum. Here I'm using the Grandmaster LED's Borg Evolution. This is a spectrum tuning light. And I have a little cheat sheet here, which shows kind of what I've been aiming for as far as the spectrum. You can completely adjust it, which is really, really cool. For the main weeks, what I've been doing, they're phase 3, which is after the stretch phase, 100% warm white, 25% deep red, and 30% far red. Now you go into phase 4 when there's 3 weeks left of flower, and that's what we're pretty much at right now. So I'm switching over to 100% warm white, 100% cool white, and 15% far red. And then it goes to 2 weeks left of flowering, you change it, and then 1 week left of flowering, you would change it as well. And so a lot of people will adjust the spectrum in order to try to achieve a better quality. And I think generally speaking, one thing you'll notice that it's reducing the amount of red and increasing the amount of blue. Because when you get towards blue, you're getting more towards UV, which I know there's some debate, some controversy behind whether or not UV has a positive impact on the trichomes or not. But a lot of people will still go more towards a blue spectrum in the final weeks of flowering in order to try to achieve a better quality. In the back right corner, this plant right here is Hulk's Breakfast by iCan Seeds. Now, one of the things that was mentioned in my last video, and I didn't actually notice until I was editing the video, I forgot to actually mention it, was I'm seeing some curling on the leaves. You can clearly see some curling on some of these leaves, which curling is a sign of nitrogen toxicity. Now, there are other signs of nitrogen toxicity as well, which I want to mention, which is excessively dark leaves, shiny leaves, and also bud structure gets compromised. You can get really airy buds if you've got too much nitrogen in flowering. I've experienced it in the past. I'm not seeing those excessively dark leaves, shiny leaves, or bud production being compromised. I'm just seeing the curling there, so I'm thankful to see that. It might be a little bit toxic in nitrogen, but there's no real adverse effects happening on there. I'm not adding any more nutrition to the medium, so for the final weeks here, which this one I believe is 10 to 12 weeks, I should be good. We've got about another 30 days roughly. I think this plant is gonna be just fine. But what I could do, and this is, this tip right here is the most debated one, which is flushing. Some people would say, hey, go ahead and flush that plant at this point. Try to remove some of that nutrition in the medium, you would get a better result. Now, I'm not saying that that is going to be the case, but I still want to mention flushing because this is a technique that people still do to this day. People swear that it gives them a great result. They say that if you flush the medium before harvest, it's gonna have a better smoothness of smoke, less harsh, better flavor. So some people will still do it. Now, these plants are all being grown organically, and generally speaking, people don't flush organic plants. But what do we mean by flush? There's a couple different definitions out there. One of them, which is run a large amount of water through the medium. I've got 10-gallon containers here. If we run, if we want to do 2 flooding the medium flush, that's running 20 gallons of water through that medium. And oftentimes what people used to do is they used to aim for the lowest amount of ppm in that runoff prior to harvest. Around 100 ppm on a 500 scale TDS tester, people would aim for prior to harvesting. They assume that the quality is going to be a lot better. So that's what they do. I've done that in the past. That was 8 to 10 years ago. Since then, I've changed my ways. I've done less of that type of flushing. Now, there is another definition of flushing, which is just also called leaching, which is just feeding plain water for the final weeks of the grow. Now, whether that be with organic amendments, not adding anything else in, just plain water, or if you're on bottled nutrients, just doing plain water for the final few weeks. Some people swear by it. Although there have been studies out there that say that there's no change to the cannabinoid profile, there's no change to yield, and there's no change to the nutrient content within the plant. That's one study. Other people are gonna argue, okay, all that's great, but what about the chlorophyll breakdown? That's one of the things that hasn't been studied yet from my knowledge. Also, what about the starches and sugars? So I personally feel like those things still need to be studied. I heard that it's very difficult to study those things. So I don't know if we're obviously studies on it or not, but if we can get more studies behind it, we can see whether or not it's making a difference, because we still have some folks out there that are flushing. Let me know in the comment section below if you are one of them. Do you flush prior to harvest or not? Let me know. Let me know if you do a flooding the medium flush or just leaching where you're giving plain water only for the remaining of the grow. Also, your reasoning for doing it. Do you think it does have smooth smoke if you flush or not? Let me know. In the back left-hand corner of the grow tent, Nerds Rope S1 by Elevate Seeds. This one is starting to look really pretty, and I've seen pictures online late in flowering where the whole plant is like purple. Really good colors. Actually, some of the leaves actually have some purpling coming out, and I think as we get closer and closer to harvest, we're going to see more and more purples come out. Now, I did have to put stakes for support on that one as well. Even though the buds look smaller, it's dense. The weight on the branches are causing it to kind of flop over. So I have some stakes on there for support. Might need to add a few more stakes on there to make sure it stays upright up until harvest. But in order to determine when to harvest, it brings me to my last tip. Check the trichomes. So this is something that many folks still don't do, right? There are a lot of old school folks out there that are just gonna look at the plant, look for the plant's pistils or hairs to change colors. They want it to be amber or like a brown and see some receding happening. Right now, most of these plants just have all white pistils on it, or white stigmas, I should say. Some people say, hey, just looking at the plant doesn't look like it's ready for harvest. But if you actually take a microscope, usually people do about 60x microscope or digital microscope you can do. Some people actually take their phone, take a picture really close, and then zoom into that photo in order to try to see the trichomes. You can do that with some smartphones these days, which is really cool. Kind of saves you money, so you don't have to buy a microscope. But taking the time to look at the trichomes and seeing what color they're at. Now, there's some elementary information that a lot of people already know, but for the new folks out there, clear trichomes are not yet potent. Milky is the next stage. That's when it's at its full potency. And then also goes to an amber after that, which is said to change from THC to a CBN, so a different cannabinoid. It's going to give you more of a sedating effect. Now, when to harvest really comes down to personal preference. I personally like to harvest when most of the trichomes are cloudy with a sprinkle of amber. Some people will look for a certain percentage of amber, 5%, 10%, 20% amber before they harvest. So it really comes down to personal preference, but in order for you to kind of get maximum quality out of your plant, looking at the trichomes is definitely a good thing to do. If you're new to growing cannabis organically, or you're in your intermediate stage, you can definitely get some value from picking up my book, Organic Cannabis Cultivation. This is a beginner to intermediate guide on growing cannabis organically. This is available on Amazon worldwide or on my website, mrgrow.com. That's pretty much it for this video, guys. Thanks for tuning in this week, and I'll catch you next week. Peace out.